It's the weirdest van that I've never seen or really even heard of. Let's take a look at this 2018 Mercedes Metris. Mrs. Wizard, do you remember your aunt's Grand Caravan that had a 4-cylinder in it and it was really underpowered?
It was horrendously underpowered. It would downshift on a Kansas hill.
So that's basically what this is. It's a 4-cylinder, turbo 4-cylinder, and it's bigger than your aunt's van was.
That thing was way underpowered.
And this one is underpowered as well. I felt kind of bad at first when this showed up, and I didn't know what a Metris was, but the people that brought it here didn't even know what it was. They called it a Sprinter van. They said, hey, we got this Sprinter van, we'd like to have you guys work on it, and I said, sure. I even told Magic Mike, who was a Sprinter van mechanic for a while, one of these was coming in, a Sprinter van, but when it showed up, it was not a Sprinter van at all. It's a Mercedes Metris. Totally different chassis, totally different van. We're going to take a look at it today. It only has one small problem, but it's a major chore and a major expense for an emissions code. Here we are again, guys, in emissions code. So let's take a look around this thing real quick. Take a look in the engine bay, and then I'll get Magic Mike over and we'll take a look at what is wrong with this Metris or Tetris. Is it Tetris, Mrs. Wizard?
I don't know too many things that will fit around it, so let's go with Metris.
Metris, okay. So I suppose you're right, Mrs. Wizard. It says Metris, Metroid, Tetris, something along those lines. As you can see, it's not a small van. It's kind of bulky. It's bigger than your typical caravan. I'd say 20% bigger, maybe even 30%. This one's in decent shape. It's not all beat up or anything, but it's a 2018. It shouldn't be all beat up and rusted and whatnot. But it has sliding doors. Yeah, I'll let Mrs. Wizard show you guys the interior here in a minute, but it is kind of a strange van. As you look down the sides here, there's a couple of tiny dings, but nothing very serious. So here's the front end, and actually it was parked outside. I walked in to talk to Crazy D, and I looked out the window and I said, that is not a Sprinter van. He said, well, that's what they said it was. I said, no. That's not a Sprinter van. So this is obviously confusing to most people. And like I mentioned, I didn't even know that Metris was a thing. It's either that they don't make a lot of them or they're not very popular. So as we go down this side, you can see it also has a sliding door, but I'm going to do a Doug DeMuro here and do a weird quirks and features that you fill up with gas at the front driver door. Let me show you. You open this door here, and you open this flap. And there you go. You fill up with gas with this door open because you can't open this without opening that. So any kind of fumes or anything, I guess, are going to go right into your cabin. That's really, really strange. The more that I look at this van, the deeper that I dig, the stranger and stranger that it gets. A very strange feature there. It's got your Mercedes wheels, and I do see a little bit of a scrape going on there. Let's go ahead and move on into the interior and let Mrs. Wizard show you guys around.
Well, as always, ladies and gents, we start here at the gauge cluster, and we'll see it has 75,000 miles, just about. Within a few seconds, it'll roll over. And as we look around the car, we're going to see that this is definitely not what we normally see for a Mercedes. One thing I'm noticing now is that the speedometer, which is a regular gauge, only has miles per hour. There's no kilometers per hour listed like we're so used to seeing. We're used to seeing that dual, European, American, markings. As we move up, this is quite a dash. And looks like it's got a couple of little spots you could, store items. I'm not sure what you would want up there because that'd be hard to grab as you're driving down the road, but nonetheless, that's what they are. There's no cracks, no marks. It is hard plastic, not a vinyl. This is plastic. So as we move to our infotainment system, pretty straightforward, pretty basic. They are streamlining their design, not as maybe complicated as we were used to seeing back in the classic Mercedes era. Do have a heck of a cup holder here in the center. Could definitely hold that Sonic Route 44 drink in there, and then some. As we move to the seats, they are MDX. They're not leather. They look nice. They've got some nice bolster on the side. Not that you're going to be drifting around too many corners in this beast, but nonetheless, that's what it is. So door card's nice. Lots of hard plastic in here. So to show the back seat, since we have sliding doors, let's hop out and open the door. Would you get the door for us, kind sir?
I will.
Thank you.
And they are power sliding doors.
Ooh-hoo-hoo. It's got 2 rows with 3 seats with headrests, which would make it a little bit more comfortable than those old conversion vans we were used to seeing back in the 90s. Looks like the seats also can be easily adjusted and moved. I wouldn't say that they slide overly well, but they do have options to where they can be placed. We had to switch sides because we wanted to show how do you actually get to that 3rd row, and the other side didn't have this as an option. Wizard, would you do the honors? Wow, normally we're used to the seat back just moving, but this whole baby rocks forward. And there we can see here is that 3rd row seat. Looking good. Nothing too, complicated back here. Lots of 12-volt ports back here and cup holders. So looking good. So this is quite an interior that holds 8 people rather comfortably. Nice legroom. So interesting to see the interior of this. Let's see what the engine bay looks like.
So when this van came in, I fully anticipated to see a 3.5 V6 or an inline 6-cylinder or something with a little power. And I saw, and actually Magic Mike confirmed with me that it is a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo, only 200 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque, which is okay, but for a large van, it's kind of, I don't know if you'd say mediocre, or I definitely wouldn't want to tow anything with it. Let's take a look around the engine bay real quick. We have some things apart. We're doing some work on it. And I'll have Magic Mike over here in a minute, but you can see that it is just a 4-cylinder that's in a CLA class Mercedes, but it's not sideways like a front-wheel drive. So that means it's rear-wheel drive. It has a 7-speed automatic. It is not all-wheel drive. This one is just rear-wheel drive. It doesn't look horrible to work on, but some of the things look kind of difficult to get to. So here we are with Magic Mike, and as you guys know who have been following along, he used to work in El Cajon, California at a Mercedes dealership there. And in your time at the dealership, you told me towards the end of your time there is when you started seeing these.
Yeah, these 270, 274 engines were starting to get up into the higher mileage. People were getting over 50,000 miles just out of warranty period, and we were starting to see the issues starting to come up.
And you mentioned to me that's a CLA drivetrain?
Correct, yes. So this shares the same engine as the CLA. Engine's rotated, but same powertrain, slightly different layout.
And you kind of made a comment too, it's very underpowered.
Yeah, it's not a great towing vehicle. It's in my opinion, it's an okay minivan.
It's an okay minivan, that's about it, yeah.
Yep.
And you also mentioned towards the end when you started seeing these come in, and also the CLAs, you started seeing a common replacement, a common failure.
That happened to be the vent purge solenoid valve. And on these vehicles, it's not just the valve like on most cars.
Yeah. So it came in for a check engine light, and it just had an emissions code for the crankcase vent valve. That's all. That's all that's wrong with it. And you would think, oh, a little bitty valve, we'll replace that. We'll be back on our way, a couple $100. And that's where you're so wrong. It's very strange how they do these. I've seen it, like he mentioned on the CLAs. You cannot buy just the little valve. Let me get an old one that we have, and I'll show you guys. So this little valve is all that's wrong, but in order to solve the check engine light and the failure of this little valve, you have to replace all of this. It's a big spaghetti of hoses. This is actually the intake to the turbo. It has various other sensors involved. It has a little chamber here. That's a oil separator. You have to buy this entire assembly just to replace this faulty little part here. Let me show you a picture. This is the one I ordered. And as you can see, you can't just buy the little piece. You buy all of it or you buy none of it. They do not, and you cannot get just that little sensor. So it's easy to think, oh, come on, you can get on Google and find a little sensor or something, or cross-reference the part or whatever. And you remember we actually tried that. We actually found that part and we swapped it out on one. But then the computer recognized resistance. Something was wrong. And it said, no go, guys. No go. Not allowed. And it threw the check engine light up again. Whatever they've got going on in here is specific to this assembly. And you cannot just find some part off of eBay and just replace that. That's not going to work. And you mentioned at the dealership that you saw not just a few of these assemblies replaced, but one after another and another.
Yep, seems to be a common failure pattern on these 274 engines, and it's usually happening once the cars are out of warranty. So dealership will hand you a quote for almost $2,000, and you'll wonder, what the heck, it's just a valve.
Yeah, $2,000. That's at the dealership. We're able to do it here for $1,400. We're saving them $600 off of what the dealership would charge to do this, but still, $1,400 for a little emissions valve. And it's not just the part that's expensive. We'll take a look in the engine bay and we'll raise it up. It is not a 30-minute job. It's more like 6 hours or more. So as you can see, you see a familiar conglomeration of pipes. This is kind of part of it here. And you can see that it goes all along and all the way down under the intake. This is not something that you just unbolt a couple of bolts and pull it out. There's connections and bolts, clamps. This entire intake assembly has to come off the turbo, which is down there. And we'll go ahead and raise it up. You were mentioning, Magic Mike, that you would have to remove a motor mount.
Correct. On these Metris vans, you have to remove the driver's side engine mount and the mount arm that actually bolts onto the engine block, because that crankcase ventilation block that we were looking at, that's directly behind the mount arm. So we got to make sure we get that oil separator out of there.
Okay, well, let's raise this thing up and take a look from underneath. So as you can see, Magic Mike says he had to remove the AC compressor to even get access to remove that motor mount and the arm. And the reason why is this corrugated pipe right here I'm touching. If you guys can see that. It moves along to the oil separator, which is under the intake and all crammed up inside right above the mount arm. So that doesn't look very fun to do.
It isn't the most fun job I've ever had, and again, these Metrises, these are the only ones where they're behind the mount arm. On the CLAs, normally you have to pull off an axle and a couple of covers and it comes out that way. It's a little bit faster, but not much more. It's just kind of an inconvenient job no matter which engine variant you're working on.
Right. So that's kind of like it's a shock factor when someone gets a call. It's going to be $1,400 or $2,000 for an emissions valve. But once they see what's really going on, it's like, well, I don't want to do that work.
Exactly.
I think I'll have to pay someone to do that. And would you do it for $20?
No, definitely not.
No,
this is not a quick weekend
I'm not doing
job.
that for $20. I'll give you a case of beer and $50. Nope. Nope, not happening. All right, well, I'll let you get back to what you were doing, and I'll finish up here on the van.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks. So while we're under here, we'll go ahead and take a look underneath this van. You can see this is where our intercooler is. And there's our radiator. Here is the oil pan sump of our little 4-cylinder engine. There's also the output or the input of the intercooler there, the other side of it. We can move right here to this steering rack, and you can see there's no power steering lines. You can see there's an electric motor right here. That's another item that if it were to fail, it's not going to be a couple $100. It's going to be thousands. It's just the name of the game with newer cars, guys. Check out this wheel. You can see that maybe they would offer an all-wheel drive option, but I don't think so on these. That's just a knuckle that they use there. But as you can see, there's no CV shaft there. So this is a rear-wheel drive only. The brakes look fine. Nothing's leaking from the strut. Sway bar link is good. Over to here, the brakes look fine. Nothing's leaking over there either. And nothing's going on with the sway bar link. Here's our transmission. It's the 7-speed automatic, which of course corresponds with it being rear-wheel drive. You guys know in the past couple of videos I've done charcoal canisters, and here's another one. Luckily this one's not bad. And it does have a nice metal shield protecting it. So we have all these lines running along here, and that is for rear air conditioning and rear heater. That's why all that is there. I've seen a lot of vans get corrosion on these joints from road salt or sand or whatever, and then we start getting AC leaks that an average mechanic can't find because they don't look under the car. They forget that there's rear units on this. Here's our fuel filler right by the front door coming into the fuel tank. Here's our girthy drive shaft. This one's kind of long, Mrs. Wizard. Look at that flex disc, Mrs. Wizard.
Oh wow, he's an impressive guy.
That's a small pizza. Everything looks good on it. On the exhaust, there's our catalytic converter right by the turbo. Then we've got a flex joint here, a little resonator chamber, a big, giant square muffler. It's SpongeBob square muffler.
It is really big.
Our flex disc back here is a little smaller. It's not as large as that front one was. And we do have a torque arm right there. And this little bushing looks good. There is some seepage from the rear differential, but nothing to be concerned about. CV shafts look good. Let me get this trolley out of the way for you guys. And CV shaft on there is good. Our brakes look good. That's a strange shock absorber. It's almost at a 45-degree angle, or maybe even more. It's strange. More strange things about the Metris van, guys. Over here, same thing with the shock. CV boot looks good. And here's our bump stops in good shape, so if you were to over compress the spring, it gives some assistance to keep it from breaking the spring. You can see more AC lines. They're already starting to corrode. You can see this crusty stuff coming off. They go back here to an expansion valve in the back. This is also an area that likes to corrode. So if you have one of these vans or any kind of van with rear AC and you've got a leak, make sure to check underneath the car. Back here, don't forget about that. Here's our spare tire. And here we have another muffler before we go out the back. Amazingly, this thing has a tow hitch, and that's really strange for kind of the being a little underpowered. But imagine if you had all 8 passengers, 150, 200-pound people, and a trailer pulling 2,000 pounds or something. I don't think that it could do it, guys. And just like Magic Mike recommended, he would not recommend towing with this thing, and not very heavy anyway. I can look inside of here, and I can see the paint is still glossy. There's not even a single scratch, which tells me they have not used it for towing. So that's good. Well, let's get this thing back on the ground. So all that work, all that expense, which over half of it is just this, for an emissions light. And it's easy to think, I don't care about emissions, I'm just going to let that go. In some states, like New York especially, you can't let it go. They will force you to fix it. New York is one of the few states that I know of, maybe there's more, that can force you to repair your vehicle if you bring it to a shop and it fails emissions testing. The mechanic has full power from the law to keep your car until you fix it. It's not allowed to even leave the shop until you fix it. You have no choice. Can you imagine? $1,400, fix it. And it doesn't matter if you approve it or not. You will fix it. That's kind of strange. This one is one that I would not want to ignore because this little oil separator here is what takes care of oil vapors out of your crankcase. And this little valve also opens and closes flow for that. If it's failed in an open position or something's wrong, you could easily have oil usage. It could burn oil. And you don't want to run yourself out of oil. So this is one of those situations where it's not fun to fix. It's not fun for us to do it. It's not fun for you to cough up the money. It's one of those situations in a shop where no one involved is happy about the job, but it just has to be done. So I'll throw this one over to the side. I definitely wanted to do a video on the Metris. Yeah, the Metris, to let you guys see this strange van. I've actually never seen one like I mentioned. Now we have, and now we know that its drivetrain is based off of a CLA. And if you get a check engine light for your crankcase vent valve, you know what's ahead. Especially if you're at a dealership looking at a CLA or a Metris, and you scan the codes and it says crankcase vent valve, and the salesman says, it's no big deal, just a little $50 valve. You can say, I watch Car Wizard and I know that it's not a $50 valve. I know that it's at least $1,400 and $2,000 at a dealership. So you need to take that price off the price of the vehicle or fix it for me.
So Car Wizard, if it's been done, how long will it last?
Well, this one lasted 75,000 miles. They have a high failure rate. Like Magic Mike said, in the dealership in his last days at the Mercedes dealership, that is, he saw one after another and another. They were dropping like flies. So maybe another 75,000 miles. I don't know. I didn't design the car. It's just the way it is. I finally got the bearings from a buddy in Australia on the Nissan Juke. And I measured them and compared them to the old ones, and they're identical. I finally found main bearings halfway across the world on a complete other continent, because there are none here in the United States. It's again so strange that it's a Japanese car in a North American market with a French Renault engine. It is really, really weird. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, because that video will be coming soon. And also, if you're curious what kind of tools Magic Mike is using on this Metris, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. Thanks for watching.